Welcome to Fall 2012. This is Jenny Whitcomb and
Barb Spriggs.
this screencast reviews updates to program documents like the observation forms and important details about crafting your seminar syllabus and preparing for your first seminar with your student teachers. We're really excited to get this semester started and want to get all of us off to a great start. We're sending this information out as a screencast so you have a chance to take it up at your own tempo, and so we use our precious face-to-face time to talk to one another and solve problems and ask questions. This is a new way for us to communicate with you, so we'll welcome your feedback about how we can improve it. So first, I'd like to welcome Barb Spriggs as our Interim Director for Student Teaching, and she and Kathy Gamble have been working like crazy for the last 3 weeks to overlap, and I'm just so excited about their collective wisdom leading to some changes that we're going to go through in this screencast for you. And I just want to say to all of you how much I appreciate their gusto and positive spirit. Well, we're really looking forward to this fall, and I think we've tried to make some changes that will support you. We have 8 new supervisors, and all of us will have a chance to meet one another on August 9th. I want to give you a quick update about Jill's position. Jill, for new folks, is our administrative assistant, and we are still searching on her position. That's partially because the hiring wheels grind really slowly at CU, but we are interviewing folks very shortly, and I do anticipate having someone in place by mid to end of August. And just want to thank you in advance for patience as we make do without some critical support, and in the fall as our new admin assistant learns the ropes. And I want to also emphasize that we're using this turnover in staff to also take a look at all of our business practices and ask ourselves, when we have a process, are we doing this because it serves our students and supports supervisors, or are we doing it out of habit? So this is just a chance to be fresh about how we do our work and be efficient in how we do our work, to make sure that we're contributing to our student teachers' learning and growth. So your feedback is welcome about processes that you think can be enhanced. Thanks.
As you look at the agenda for August 9th, we've highlighted a few important details. Jenny and I will begin at 8 with the student teachers, and you are very welcome to join us. Supervisors, you'll meet with us in Eaton Humanities Building from 9 to 10:15, and it will be a shorter meeting than in previous years. We're using the screencast to convey some of the logistics or the information that you used to hear in the supervisors' meetings on kickoff day. Supervisors will join their student teachers for coffee at 10:15, and then academic language presentation will follow by Professor Hopewell. This is a reprise and an update to the talk she gave last January, but by doing this session at the kickoff, we won't be taking up a seminar slot for this topic. In the auditorium, seating sections will be designated by supervisors' names, and your student teachers will be sitting in your section. Before August 9th, you should be in touch with your student teachers, and it is your decision how you want to do the lunchtime, which is a 30-minute break. You can add it to the seminar if that's your preference. You've been assigned a room number in either Humanities Eaton or Helms or Education. You may give your student teachers a half-hour break to eat lunch on their own, or you can ask them to be prepared to eat lunch with you and extend your seminar by a half hour to allow for a more casual start over lunch. Following the seminars, we'll have a TPA focus session that's required for new supervisors and optional for returning supervisors. Send your questions to Jenny Whitcomb in advance. Since Jill has not yet been replaced, some of the materials that you've had in the past for returning supervisors won't be available. For instance, you won't have resumes on your student teachers, material that they've written like essays, or information sheets that they've provided us. We are, however, able to provide the essential information of the student teacher and the cooperating teacher, their names, the school in which they'll be student teaching, and the district. You will need to look up school addresses. We also have email addresses for the principal, the student teacher, and the cooperating teacher for you. Decide what basic information you want to gather at your first seminar.
This fall in the School of Education, we're in the process of redesigning and writing the entire School of Education webpage. We've made some modest updates to the student teacher resource page that's on our current website. And in the month of August, documents on the website will be refreshed as new staff in the OSS learn how to make web page changes and updates. On August 9th, we also are going to have a CD-ROM for each of you with the most current version of all the handbooks and forms and other documents that you rely on to conduct your work as supervisors. What you'll notice that I want to point out on the website is that we've added a number of important resources around the TPA. The handbook is not included because that's proprietary content from Stanford, and we've emailed that directly to you, and we'll include that on the CD-ROM. The Making Good Choices is a document produced by Stanford and Scale, and it's an excellent resource, loads of great advice to help you guide student teachers to complete the TPA. We've included an English and Spanish video permission form that we'd like you all to be using this semester with the TPA. We've also included resources for candidates to submit their TPA to the School of Education on a DVD. So we've got detailed guidelines for file formatting and other forms like one to release the DVD to CU to look at. So their website has a whole set of TPA resources that we think will be very helpful for all of you.
Your feedback last spring helped clarify that the central purpose of the observation forms is to provide formative feedback. The indicators help guide constructive conversations with your student teachers following your observation visits, and they point the candidate toward key areas in which they can improve their practice. We made some changes to the observation forms based on your feedback last spring and other sources. First, we did change the rating scale. The revised scale emphasizes skill level and readiness to teach independently as a first-year teacher. This rating scale is also used consistently on the standards verification form. Second, we updated the language in the indicator to freshen dated language and to highlight indicators in the emerging version of CDE's Teacher Evaluation Framework. Writable forms on the CD-ROM and soon to be posted on the website are available. You may also use the QRC, and more information will be coming regarding awareness and training sessions for the QRC.
We've also updated the Student Teaching Standards verification form, and I really want to thank some key players who met with us last May, whose feedback was invaluable on trying to make this form more usable for everyone involved. Want to point out that in contrast to the observation forms, the standards verification form is indeed summative. It's used at the midterm and final conferences to ensure we have garnered sufficient evidence that each performance-based standard for Colorado teachers has been met at an acceptable level of skill for a first-year teacher of record. That's an expectation from the state that we provide teachers who meet these standards, and this is the document that we use to hold ourselves accountable. Every standard element needs to be met to be ready for licensure. So a couple of changes that we've done. The top box is better organized, and that's a legacy from Jill Perry. Thank you very much, Jill. We've reduced the ratings to 3 levels and provided more clear descriptions of what each level means. And we note that these are the exact same levels that we have introduced on the observation forms, so there's some coherence between these two different sets of documents. How do people use the form in their day-to-day functioning over the course of the semester? First, the cooperating teacher and the student teacher should maintain a common copy of this form and update it at their weekly conferences, adding brief notes of evidence along the way about how standards are being met or occasions when some might be met. For example, especially planning around when to demonstrate use of technology. At the midterm conference, as a supervisor, you will be working with this document with them, and you will note key points of evidence, just writing down quick bullets, not detailed text. Our goal is that during that midterm conference, you have an opportunity to spend more time on the growth plan, and that growth plan should be addressing aspects of practice that are high priorities to improve, or aspects of practice that receive a rating of 1 at the midterm conference using this verification form, or aspects of practice that have not yet been observed. At the final conference, you will, with the cooperating teacher and student teacher, verify that every standard has been met at a level 3. It's possible, by the way, to meet a standard at the midterm and then not need to take that up at the final conference. And we hope this reformatting of the form and description of how to use it helps clarify and simplify using this standards verification.
The only change to the final assessment form is an update to the indicators which do match those on the observation forms. This final assessment form is completed separately by the university supervisor and the cooperating teacher. If some of you returning supervisors were using an old version of this form last year, you may not have noticed that the final assessment form asks for you to comment on your student teacher's reflection and inquiry-oriented stance, or to offer suggestions for professional growth and to assess your student teacher's potential for success.
We have a number of TPA updates that we want to tick through. Many of these updates have been developed in part because we want to keep reminding ourselves of the big picture goal, that we want to ensure that managing the logistics of completing the TPA does not trump learning from completing the tasks in the TPA. The goal is learning, not managing logistics. A screencast orienting student teachers to the TPA handbook and templates just went out, and you were CC'd on that email. By August 9th, you should expect your student teachers to have viewed the screencast and read the TPA handbook, and they should bring a paper or electronic copy of the handbook to the kickoff. We will send out a shorter screencast on the TPA to cooperating teachers and district and building leaders the week of the kickoff meeting. The cooperating teacher screencast will emphasize their role in supporting the student teacher, the timeline for completing the TPA, video permissions, and the TPA workdays.
This year, we do need all of our candidates to use CU's video permission form, as it is more inclusive than school or district forms. If we get pushback from district or building leaders, please let me know and we'll follow up with them. The campus has about 30 video cameras that our student teachers can check out, or the student teachers can use their own video cameras or video equipment in their building.
We learned a little bit in the field test last spring and are trying to institute a few new policies to help our student teachers manage deadlines and think time to complete the TPA thoughtfully and not have it dominate or not allow their procrastination to let the TPA take over their life and their student teaching experience. So to keep folks on track with the TPA and moving through it this fall, we're setting up no excuses dates. All the TPAs should be in before Election Day this year. Then student teachers can focus on their soloing and consolidating their learning in the last 6 to 8 weeks of student teaching. We've also built in 4 TPA workdays. And I want to acknowledge that while FaceTime with students is absolutely critical to learning to teach, so too is time to reflect and make sense of student work and student learning and one's teaching practice. As beginners, they just don't think as fast on the fly and in between classes as all of you experienced teachers do. We need to give them some room and time to process, write, think, and make sense of their teaching practice. More detail on your role establishing and commuting deadlines is available in a few slides coming up on the syllabus. And we'd like to say that the TPA workdays will be communicated to cooperating teachers in the slideshow for them. If any cooperating teacher is really frustrated with this or finds this problematic, please direct them to Barb and we'll talk it through with them and our student teacher.
Pearson is not going to be ready for full implementation this fall, so students will not be submitting their TPAs to Pearson platform, and they will also not be paying the $300 fee. The TPA is still consequential for licensure at CU. It is an important source of evidence that we rely upon in making a decision that someone is ready to teach and eligible for an institutional recommendation to CDE. The TPA counts for 50% of the seminar grade, as is indicated in the syllabus. We will again collect their TPA documents on a properly formatted DVD, and guidelines are on the web. Supervisors will provide informal, formative feedback, as we did last spring when we commented on what we noticed and wondered about their work.
We want to point you to a few resources that will help you support your student teachers to complete the TPA. First, the Making Good Choices document on the website is an excellent resource to support your student teachers with each TPA task. Second, because the TPA is a summative consequential assessment, there are limits to the assistance and feedback that you may provide, particularly with regard to editing their document, to making very specific suggestions for information that they should add. The Cooperating Teacher Supervisor Handbook has much more detail about how to provide acceptable levels of feedback, and please follow up with Barb if you are ever unsure about whether or not you are able to give a certain kind of feedback to your student teacher, particularly around an early version of a task. With regard to academic language, we've invited Professor Sue Helpwell to give a feature presentation on this topic at the kickoff because academic language is an aspect or domain of teacher knowledge that's really hard for our student teachers to grasp, and we want to launch them with a solid framework and shared language that all of you can have together in the opening weeks of the student teaching semester. We've sent you a link to the screencast that's of Sue's talk that she gave last January. She's reprising this and updating this talk for us on August 9th, but some of you may want to review that talk as she gave it in January to get some ideas about academic language sort of reloaded and front-loaded in your own minds as you listen to Sue's updated talk on the 9th. Also, I want to do a few updates about what's ahead for all of us with regard to the TPA. First, we will plan a TPA summit sometime this fall that will involve course instructors in our teacher education programs along with all of you supervisors. And the focus of that summit will be to examine some of the TPA rubric scores and exemplars from the spring field test to study that data together. The supervisor meetings are also an important forum for you to think through how you are supporting your student teachers, challenges you're encountering, and to use one another as resources to support the student teachers. I'll note that the Stanford and Scale are changing the handbooks for the TPA and some of the templates for our spring implementation of the TPA. So those aren't due out until mid-fall, and when they are, we'll be introducing those simultaneously so that we get ready for it next January.
We want to offer you some support for preparing your Education 4513 syllabus and seminar. So attached to this email is the Education 4513 syllabus template, a suggested calendar, and other information that will help you plan your first seminar. Both the syllabus and the suggested calendar have the no excuse dates for TPA tasks and the 4 student TPA workdays. The syllabus template has yellow highlighted areas for you to fill in to make your syllabus personal to your semester with your student teachers. But please enter your information and then take out the notes to you as well as all of the yellow highlights. It is important to note also that you will not have time to make copies for your first seminar on August 9th, so plan ahead to make those copies earlier at CU or in another location. Syllabi are due from the new supervisors on August 6th and from our returning supervisors on August 17th. Jenny and I are looking forward to seeing you all on the 9th and the new supervisors on the 2nd.